Hi everyone, Phil Turek here. In my youth, I always viewed the United States as having the finest democracy in the world. But in the past couple of years, I've become aware of a more super advanced civilization, a democracy that has lasted longer than our own US has so far. And it is what I'm going to share with you about today, some of the details that I've learned about it. Mm, Here we go. Someone once challenged me to do something about the state of our nation. In response, I decided to use Mars as a tool for social changes here on Earth in three steps. Students explore Earth. The best then live on Mars long enough to be called Martians, who then come back to the US as positive social influencers. I envisioned Congress debating which Amtrak train routes the first Martian ambassador would take when arriving on U.S. soil, so the Martian could see our Purple Mountain's majesty and our amber waves of grain. The route would also reflect American politics, which I claimed was the finest democracy in the world. I put all of this and more into a 10-page letter that I mailed off to the Vice President of the United States on Valentine's Day, 1990. I did expect a meaningful reply. You could fairly accuse me of being naive. I prefer to call myself idealistic. I am Phil Turek, and I approve of this message. Martians on Earth, Season 3, Episode 2, An Advanced Civilization. And of course, I'm Phil Turek. Of what civilization am I talking about? So, here's a cartoon drawing that says, for 200 years, the Iroquois were a great factor in safety and all that. I don't really have the time to read all of this stuff to you. Oh, man. And you're going to just have to pause the video, look at these things. And the idea is there was this Native American nation that is a democracy in every sense of the word, and they had a lot of superior characteristics to ourselves, at least in some regards. So, where did all this come from? Once upon a time, there was a Native American, his name was Ray, and he took the trouble to establish the Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center in upstate New York. And within it, he loaded it up with many, many artifacts. But he also had created a series of charts, some really big things. They're about 3 feet wide, 2 feet plus high. And within them, there's more than 2 dozen of these charts. Each one conveys anecdotes about the Six Nations, the history of it. And he had an artist contribute drawings that went with it, and he wrote his own little text. And what I did is during the break between season 2 and 3, I got to spend 2 hours up there in the museum, and specifically my goal was to try to photograph each of those charts. They didn't come out very well at all. I had to kind of hold the charts because they swing shut and then try to take a picture with a camera and it settings weren't very good. So you get to suffer through what I've done is take those charts, selected some anecdotes that personally resonate with me, share them with you, and now I'm going to try to explain to you a bit about all of this. So I grew up in the Cayuga tribe area there, but just learned about the, our school mascot was the Southern Cayuga Chiefs. Okay, so there's the region. This territory spread over much of the United States, northeast, and it was considered the five nations of the Iroquois originally, and then eventually one tribe was added in. They were refugees from, I think, Ohio area, and they became the Tuscaroras, the sixth tribe. So now it's the Six Nations. And it's super exciting to talk about who they were and who they are. So if you'd gone to this historical cultural center a couple decades ago, you would have met Ray, the Native American who created all these charts, and he would tell you stories. My stepson-in-law was a child and, just enthralled with it. And so he took me to this place 2 years ago, or actually a year ago, sorry, and I wanted to return. So I zipped back there this year for 2 hours just to photo document the charts. If you go there now, Ray's grandson, Dave, is available, and you could talk with him, and he will tell you, the stories passed down through his grandfather. But I don't have time to read all this stuff to you. The point of this slide is, wow, they were larger than the Roman Empire. Estimates are it was 12,000 to 15,000 men, women, and children making up this civilization. I personally feel that the architecture contributed to their mm, cultural values, that they didn't have land ownership. And that's a key thing from my point of view. They had community mindset from the beginning. Their long houses were structures that were organized by the family, then the clan, then the tribe. And I think that's what helped them create this social organism based on democracy, equality, and brotherhood, like it says here, brotherhood. Okay, what else? Government of the whole, by the whole, for the benefit of the whole. What does that sound like? That sounds like, our Declaration and Constitution. This is where our roots came from. It didn't come from the old world. It came from the Native Americans in the New World, specifically the six nations of the Iroquois. Okay, and I don't know if you can read this or if my little screen image there is blocking this, but you get to read it. Once again, the point is, it was too advanced of a civilization for it to be fully absorbed into the colonies that became the United States. We adopted some of it, right? All men are created equal. They're endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We, the people, in order to establish, okay? Those roots came from the Six Nations. We just didn't fully embrace it enough. So here we go. You get to read the slides when you have time. Here's something really relevant from my point of view. Okay. The leaders got no perks for being in public office there. They were selected based on their wisdom, their integrity. They never forced their resolutions on anyone. Their reward was honor and esteem. And shame and being despised were their punishments. And that was it. Okay. Here's another slide saying the same thing. You'd have to read the text. So, what is this? This is a photograph of the bottom section of one of the tribes' charts, and the borders were decorated with the Native American words for various objects. Okay. So, and there's my finger holding the chart open so I can take a photograph of it. And there's the artwork created by one of the artist who created all of this artwork to support Ray's charts. Okay, you get to read this stuff. And as you can see, they didn't organize it in nice little 4 by 3 format images that you could just photograph and have it distinct. So when I crop this frame, you see stuff that's not too important. Okay, well, I'm sorry, stuff that I didn't want to draw your attention to. I want to draw your attention to what's written here that says, look, these guys, when they served in public office, their mindset was whatever gift they receive is not for them personally, it's for their people. And their reward is in sharing the gifts with the people. So they didn't get to sit, closest to the fire. Uh, they didn't get a privileged anything. And it was just by merit that they were selected to serve as their civic representatives. Got it? And if they lose that esteem, they're out of office, just like that. If they do anything that's, hmm, not good. Let's just keep going. Now, on this slide, again, the artwork, and this guy's saying Look, same thing. They didn't have social classes. It was a community, and that's what we don't have in the US today. But look what I've kind of highlighted down here. If I were to show you every chart, you would see that little symbol there, which is the artist's signature. So the guy who created all the artwork that goes with the text, there's his name, Ka Hess, Ka Hees. And there's his little signature symbol. So I'm not going to acknowledge him in every slide. I'm just telling you that every slide all the artwork is from this one artist. And the text itself, as I understand it, is from Ray, who has, passed away. He was an old man when my stepson-in-law was a young boy. So time passes. Another little fact you might want to consider, the women had the sole right of nominating civil servants. And there's a couple more slides that just reinforce that thought. So, it's one of the tendencies of bravery that women rise to their proper rank and influence, that they're the ones who who nominate representatives of the people. And they could be nominating men or women. They also had the veto power over any treaties that were negotiated. So, on the issue of war or peace or selling land to the Europeans, they had the veto power over all of that. So, women in society, they were equal. And that's something that we have our traditional wives who are very much wanting to give up their voices, political voices. Let the men speak for me. I am so happy to be barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, sort of thing. This is great. I don't have to think critically about anything. Wow. Okay, so again, you're going to have to pause this and read it on your own. I'm just going to keep clicking. Sorry for the poor quality photography. The image up above shows a modest woman next to a man. And the point of this slide is, look, people have stereotyped the Native Americans as being savages, beast, poisoning our blood. Does that come to mind? And rapist, ooh, criminals, rapists. Yes, all those labels applied to Native Americans, even though not true. Okay, so this is just yet another historian pointing out that if a, if a woman was taken captive, they were treated as family, not as a slave. They were never raped, never any of that, and that was the whole culture of this civilization. Uh, what I what comes to mind when I look at this one? So, what's the guy's name? Brandt. Okay. He was saying, kill a woman and her child? A child can be no enemy. Now think about that line for a moment. Right now, here in the United States, current events, if a child is brought into the United States illegally, then that child is considered an enemy of the United States. And maybe they grow up, maybe they spend their whole lives here from the moment that they were brought across the southern border, typically. And they only know the United States, they love the United States, but right now, our federal government is making a point of declaring them to be enemies that must be removed from this country. How can a child be an enemy? And if that child wasn't an enemy when they were brought here, why is it that they're an enemy once they've grown up here? What, where's the logic in that? Or where's the moral compass guiding your decision making about making that judgment more properly? So, another factoid, a little anecdote. This one is really, should hit home. Compare it to the way we treat homeless people. compared to the way we treat, oh gosh, immigrants who have been trying for years to become legally present in the United States. Whereas among the Iroquois, if they came across someone, okay, a stranger, could come and stay in the longhouse as long as they wanted. And if it was a relative, again, they could stay as long as they wanted. So they didn't have hunger. They didn't have people who were left out in the cold. They never had people shunned and left out in the cold. That is so different from the way we are today. Okay. Yikes. Here's just another little anecdote about that. So in 1708, some Iroquois chiefs went to London. And while they were there, they saw these poor, homeless immigrants being ignored on the streets. So you got the really wealthy Londoners in their carriages and maybe their top hats, I don't know, 1708. But the contrast was so extreme that the Indians there, I'm sorry, Indians, Native Americans, uh, the Native Americans there offered them land. You could read this yourself. They just didn't have that cultural caste system that we are still struggling with today. This one points out they never fought over religion. They never tried to force anyone to have their particular religious views. They never tortured their captives. Wow, we are not behaving this well right now. So current events is the kid up in Washington is saying, if you burn our flag, that's sacred. Okay, why isn't this kid pointing out that it's the words and meaning of the Constitution of the United States that is actually sacred? So the kid is holding up a flag and saying, "This is sacred." And by the way, the nickname for this kid now is the God Emperor of the United States. The God Emperor. So, yeah, I guess the God Emperor gets to declare that a flag is sacred. And meanwhile, behind his back, he's torching the meaning of the Constitution of the United States, which is the actual sacred document. So, wow, you know, gosh. So, think I'm deviating too much. Yikes. Crimes unknown in the social system. And I see I'm talking too long, so I'm just going to click, click, click. It has to do with, again, land ownership is a big factor in our personal values. These people were happy, freedom loving. There's a limit, right? So they used ceremony, tradition to keep things in constraint. The one thing they couldn't stand was being captives. That killed them. uh, we seem to be becoming content to have an authoritarian despot controlling what we are allowed to think. Oh gosh, here's another one. We need to reflect on who we are today. And our nation is changing. If you want to actively take part in changing the trajectory of our nation, you do need some historical context about what things could have been like, what things were like for some civilizations, and where is it that we want to go? Okay. And this one is the one that really resonated with me. So it's like the last slide, I believe. And it's from this chief who pointed out when the Europeans first arrived, the Native Americans thought, they're bringing the light of day because of our technology, right? We had the farming equipment. We had all these tools that could be used to shape our world. But then learning that we lie. The Indian Native Americans didn't have lying as a cultural trait, that we're abusive, that we do, take gleeful joy in torturing people. Then he said, you're not really bringing the light of day, you're bringing the darkness of nighttime. That's a sad condemnation of who we are morally. Okay, so here's my last slide, and this is just what I'm using now as my political representation of who I am, a moderate, idealistic Republican citizen against tyranny, and a meerkat is a great image for that. So, what do I want to say in closing? In my previous episode, I started a challenge about how to cancel out gerrymandering. And it's been a couple of days since then. This is just the next in a series of little videos that I want to put out expressing who I am and what my values are and what I think about things. I consulted with some people, friends in my small circle of friends, and they are going to guide me in the next couple of days about maybe setting up an Instagram account and starting to, become more of a social presence. Maybe I can come up with a soundbite. So here's a soundbite. If you encounter a political organization that stinks of, rotten intentions, then should you be surprised to find that it's filled with maggots? Okay, so there's this 10-second soundbite. I am where am I on my progress? I'm working on it. Okay, so stay tuned. Bye.